In April 2016, information about British Prime Minister David Cameron's hidden assets came to light.
There is now one rule for the super-rich and another for the rest. I'm honestly not sure, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister fully appreciates the anger that is out there over this injustice.
This was just the beginning of what would become a financial scandal of global proportions. In Argentina, the president was under fire for shady financial practices. The disclosure of secret assets held by Iceland's prime minister drew national criticism. He was forced to resign. Ground was Panama in Central America. Internal documents detailing 4 decades of operations at the law firm Mossack Fonseca had been leaked. The leaked documents contained the names of more than 210,000 shell companies all over the world. They might have been set up in tax havens in order to avoid higher taxation in their home. Hidden among them were records of the secret assets of world leaders and their associates. The documents became known as the Panama Papers. In response to these documents, journalists have begun to find common cause across international borders.
These reporters proved once and for all the success of a new model for doing cross-border collaboration.
Panama Papers really taught us about the importance of collaboration.
How many companies are there from Nepal? If we get the name of companies, then we can investigate on that from Nepal side.
In Japan, journalists from NHK joined the unprecedented investigation and uncovered previously unknown facts. It all began with an email message. It was sent to a reporter with the German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung.
The Panama Papers started with a message that I received from a person called John Doe, who I didn't know and don't know until now. And the message was only, "Hi, this is John Doe. Are you interested in data?" And I said yes, and it went back and forth. And in the end, we got a bunch of data, and then the data grew and grew more. And yeah, in the end, we had this huge file of 2.6 terabyte.
The German reporters realized that they couldn't dig through the huge cache of data alone. So they contacted an organization in the US. The International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, or ICIJ. The group has built a coalition to support investigative reporters around the world who take on the rich and powerful. In recent years, ICIJ has focused its efforts on uncovering information about assets hidden in tax havens. The ICIJ immediately launched a new project. John Doe sent more data, which ultimately grew to more than 11.5 million files.
This was completely different to anything we'd seen before. The detail was great, and we had some of the outlines of what was going on, but not on the scale. So, you know, I guess slowly but surely it dawned on me that we were looking at something bigger than anything we'd done before. The Panama Papers were never meant to be made public. They were sure when they were buying the product that they were buying secrecy, that this information would never see the light of day. That's what made it so important.
The ICIJ needed to create a system that would allow this newly obtained information to be widely shared in a highly secure way. So they
That's one of our previous projects.
More than 370 journalists were selected to participate in the project in 80 countries around the world.
Each pin actually shows where we have had partners. So you can see all our partners in Latin America, in Europe, Asia, Africa. So you can see where we have had partners.
They began by combing through files related to their own country or region. The wave of investigation spread to Asia. In Pakistan, the disclosure of wealth held by the country's elites sparked outrage. The documents had revealed hidden assets belonging to the family of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif.
I was not expecting such a tremendous feedback. And you know, they say that no story is bigger unless it is published. So I realized it for the first time after the publication of Panama Papers. So it was a kind of, you know, an earthquake of high intensity. You know, it jolted the country, jolted the politics, and the, you know, feedback was tremendous.
In Indonesia, a list of the political establishment included the name of an influential cabinet member.
First came out is the company's name. So the company's name, if you search deeper in documents within that clusters of information, then you'll find. Then we found this one sheet of paper that has the name of the minister. So it's quite a surprise for us.
In China, relatives of government officials were discovered to have assets overseas. But stories about the Panama Papers were nowhere to be found in the domestic media or on the internet. Coverage by the foreign media was also strictly regulated. NHK satellite news stories on the matter were heavily censored. Some were even blacked out completely in the middle of a broadcast. The identities of Chinese reporters who took part in the investigation are being protected for their own safety. Only the American reporter who led the investigative team in China agreed to be interviewed.
I think the big revelation of the Panama Papers are the private finances of the very wealthy and powerful in China. The database revealed that there is a sort of double standard or another system accessible to people who are very wealthy and very powerful, that they have easier ways of getting money out of the country, easier ways of hiding their assets, easier ways of anonymously registering companies in China because they know all the tricks of using the offshore world. What was surprising to me is that there has been an increase generally in China of the repression of dissidents who are calling for leaders to publicly disclose their assets.
In Japan, the names of 200 Japanese, including well-known business people, had appeared in the Panama Papers. NHK joined the effort to analyze the confidential data on the Panama Papers provided by ICIJ. We organized a team to thoroughly investigate any possible connections to Japan they might contain. The data held details of shell companies established in tax havens that were normally kept under wraps. This included personal information regarding company representatives and shareholders. After analyzing the data, our NHK team found files with the names of another 500 Japanese individuals, raising the number to over 700. Who set up these shell companies? And why? We began the process of tracking each of those people down. While reviewing all the addresses and titles, we came across names associated with some major Japanese trading firms. In one case, Japanese and Taiwanese firms have invested in a shell company in the British Virgin Islands. And the shell company has invested in a firm in Nanjing, China, and received dividends. Normally, such dividends would be reported as profits, and the investors in Taiwan and Japan would pay taxes on them to their respective authorities.
Hello.
But through our collaboration with a Taiwanese journalist, we discovered that there is a possibility that no tax on these profits had been paid by the Taiwanese firm to local tax authorities.
I'll give you this chart because I think really interesting thing. Because until right now, actually the Nanjing company didn't send any money back to the parent company.
Yeah, it's at zero.
Yes, also zero. So it means they don't send any money back, although they have some profit. It means they don't, this invest, they don't pay any tax.
How about the Japanese firms? Representatives told NHK that they had paid taxes in accordance with the law. Said that avoiding tax was not their motive for using offshore companies. On the other hand, they said the disclosure of business activities in tax havens is based on mutual trust between firms and authorities. So it's up to the individual firms to decide just how much they want to reveal. What does the Japanese government think of the use of tax havens? NHK spoke to the head of the National Tax Agency.
Honestly speaking, it is very difficult to deal with and get a grip on international tax evasion using tax havens, because it involves multiple countries, including Japan, thus more players. And between them, very complicated deals are made. However difficult it is, we do have improvement in building a systematic framework to know what is going on. After the Panama Papers release, the public took a growing interest in the issue. I think we need to step up our efforts to keep an eye out for tax evasion more than ever, and investigate if necessary.
Firm executives say tax havens are useful tools for international businesses, but they can also be used to hide inconvenient truths. One of the Japanese people named in the Panama Papers was Kazuhiko Asakawa. He'd been sentenced to prison for fraud. Asakawa was once president of AIJ Investment Advisors. He was the ringleader of a large-scale pension fund fraud scheme that came to light in 2012. He was convicted of mismanaging about $1.3 billion in pension funds. and then covering up the losses. Only about $90 million has been recovered. Many people who had entrusted him with their life savings lost everything. Is there any money left somewhere to reimburse the victims of the fraud scheme? In our review of the Panama Papers, we unearthed details on Asakawa's offshore companies. Asakawa set up 2 companies in the British Virgin Islands, AIM and NIC. These companies had been overlooked during the legal proceedings. Our team tracked Asakawa down in Tokyo. The former company president was about to head off to prison for 15 years. Asakawa agreed to an interview.
We found your name in the Panama Papers.
My name? No way. I don't know anything about it. You're kidding. Really? Well, I don't speak English. I don't understand this.
Asakawa insisted that he knew nothing about the offshore firms. But after more questioning, he admitted that he had set up some shell companies when working as a sales representative at a securities company.
It wasn't a great idea, even back then. My clients were using the companies to buy and sell their own stocks.
However, that the two had nothing to do with the pension fund fraud scheme. But something about the records in the Panama Papers didn't make sense. In tax havens, companies can be registered under the names of proxies. That protects the identity of the real owners. That was originally the case with Asakawa's offshore companies when they were set up. But around the time that the pension fraud case began attracting the attention of authorities, the registered name of the representative was changed to Asakawa.
The name was changed to yours when the Financial Service Agency started investigating AIJ.
It was changed February 1st, 2012? No, that's not true. I didn't do that. The two companies existed, but in reality, they were just bank accounts.
Asakawa insisted that he knew nothing about this strange name change. And 3 days after our interview, he went to prison. NHK had learned of unusual changes to names associated with offshore companies. But what did this mean? This man was once a business associate of Asakawa's. We asked him to share his insights. He knew Asakawa at the time the two offshore companies were created.
He was a very good securities salesman. He wanted to set up the offshore companies because everyone was doing it.
The man is well versed in the inner workings of offshore companies. He said that being named as the official representative would enable Asakawa to move money in and out of the company more quickly. According to this man, it was possible Asakawa was willing to exchange anonymity for flexibility.
You can tell the bank what to do directly if the signature on the bank account is yours. He may have moved the money after changing the name of the shell company's representatives to himself.
If he's right, Asakawa might still have money hidden somewhere. and that money could be used to repay his victims. Roughly 900,000 people had been defrauded under the scheme. 59-year-old gas station owner Toshiro Ohashi is one of them. He and his employees lost the money they were counting on for a comfortable retirement.
It's truly unforgivable. All my savings are gone. I don't know what I'll do when I retire. I'm so disappointed. I want Asakawa to return whatever money he's hiding and apologize.
We sent a letter to Asakawa in prison asking for details on his offshore companies. But so far, there has been no response. The Panama Papers have revealed how tax havens can be used by the rich and powerful to evade taxes, and by criminals to hide their assets. As we examined thousands of documents searching for signs of Japanese involvement, a new issue surfaced. Seven people caught our attention. They all had something strange in common. Shell companies in the same building in Anguilla, a British territory in the Caribbean. The Panama Papers contained copies of passports and mobile phone bills used to verify their addresses when the companies were set up. But even though these businesses were registered at the same location, the home addresses were scattered across Japan, and they seemed to have nothing else in common. Our search for answers took us to Utsunomiya, a city about 100 kilometers north of Tokyo.
2丁目の40の4って。
2丁目の2の4じゃねえか。
そんな住所ない。
ないよね。こんな人いないよね。いないよいないよ。
見たことあります？
はい。
Our team looked for all 7 people, but the addresses we found in the Panama Papers either didn't exist or someone completely unrelated was living there. We thought we'd hit an impasse. But then we found the person we'd been looking for in Utsunomiya in an unexpected place. He was working at a nightclub in central Tokyo.
We found your name in some documents.
That's my name.
Did you know you had a company in Anguilla?
No, I didn't.
He kept repeating that he knew nothing about the company associated with his name.
Right? I've never heard of it before.
The name of the company is Victory. Have you ever heard of it?
I don't know. The Panama Papers?
And you own the 2 companies.
What?
We showed him the cell phone bill, but he said he knew nothing about it. Was he telling the truth? To make sure, we asked him to call the phone company about his bill.
I have this bill, but I don't think I have a contract.
Right, let me check.
Okay.
You're right. We can't find anything for that phone number.
The contract for that number did not exist. the phone bill was probably a forgery. Then, how was it that the passport photo in the documents matched his actual passport? The man explained that his bag had been stolen the previous year.
I woke up and was like, my bag is gone. I had lots of valuables in it, so I reported it to the police. I think my passport was in there too.
Police department. Here is your case number.
Okay, thank you.
We confirmed that he'd reported the theft. His passport was later found and returned.
Did you have any involvement with this company?
I know nothing about it.
We came to the conclusion that someone might have set up these shell companies using stolen identification. We then located another of the 7 people on our list and headed off to meet him. This university employee felt uneasy about appearing on camera, so he asked not to show his face.
This is the certificate of incorporation. This is your name, and this is the paper appointing you as director.
It doesn't ring any bells at all.
A phony phone bill was used in this case too. The copy of the passport photo looked like the real thing.
It makes me really uncomfortable. This was definitely done without my consent. So I'd like to do something about it.
Have you ever lost your passport? Has it ever been stolen?
No, I haven't. But I once sent a copy of it to a computer company so I could rent a PC. Has that happened to anyone else?
It turned out that the company in Anguilla had been set up shortly after the man turned over the copy of his passport. Did the computer rental company leak the information? We went there to find out.
Do you have a record of this person submitting a copy of his passport to your company?
Yes, we do.
Is that definite?
I'd say so.
We asked about the other names associated with companies in Anguilla.
How about this person?
Yes, this person also used our services. The names in our records.
We discovered that everyone other than the man who had his bag stolen had submitted their personal information to this computer rental company. And soon afterward, the names of each of these 6 individuals were used to set up companies in Anguilla.
We feel that there's a distinct possibility that these individuals' information was leaked from our company. We deeply apologize to these 6 people. We take the situation very seriously, and we will get to the bottom of this.
Identities stolen in Japan were used to establish companies halfway. Almost all of these companies show up as operators of online dating sites. Many of these online sites have been accused of ripping off male customers. Japan's National Police Agency suspects that some of the revenue from such companies go to members of the Yakuza, organized crime syndicates. We assumed that the stolen names were used in order to conceal the identities of the people who actually operate the businesses. Emi Tatara works at an agricultural processing company.
You are listed as the director. Have you heard of it before?
I don't know anything about it. I've been working here for some time now.
Tatara had also submitted a copy of her passport when she rented a computer. And she was named as the director of an online dating site company without her knowledge.
What? That can't be. Impossible. Director? No, I'm not. No.
She now runs the risk of being associated with criminal activities.
To see my name here, it really scares me. Whatever this company is up to, I want no part of it.
Using innocent citizens as fronts for illegal activity is a contemptible crime. We made a call to the dating site that was using their names. We were connected to an overseas number. And
Number ei ole kasutusel. Palun kontrollige numbrit. The number is not in use. Please check the number.
who is behind these illegal acts? During our investigation into the Panama Papers, we made a key discovery. Every one of the Anguilla companies was connected to the Hong Kong office of Mossack Fonseca and an intermediary. This was the process we pieced together. First, someone illegally obtained personal information. It was then passed on to an intermediary in Hong Kong. The intermediary sent the information to Mossack Fonseca's Hong Kong office and asked them to form companies. Mossack Fonseca registered the companies in Anguilla as online dating sites. And it all seemed to be part of a larger criminal web orchestrated by someone who remained completely invisible. In September 2016, journalists from across Asia gathered in the Nepalese capital of Kathmandu. They discussed how to jointly cover the Panama Papers. We, on the NHK team, shared our findings about criminal activity using stolen identities with Hong Kong media company HK01. We asked for their help.
There's open information now, like for the companies, but
in Japanese case, there was a case that a person doesn't even know that that person is assigned as director of a shell company.
Why is my name in? Why is my passport was
was used.
Oh, is he a famous person or
No, just
a
ordinary
nobody?
person.
It's
No, nobody.
just nobody.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
They agreed to collaborate.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hong Kong is Asia's financial heart. There are many intermediaries involved in forming shell companies. Over 2,000 intermediaries work with Mossack Fonseca, the source of the Panama Papers. One of the Japanese victims flew to Hong Kong to find out why her name had been used to set up a shell company. Emi Tatara wanted to shut that company down. We went with her to Hong Kong. The reporters from HK01 were taking the misuse of personal information in their own backyard very seriously. They formed a special unit to cover the issue.
It has nothing to do with me. I just want it to end.
The Japanese identities were counterfeited, maybe by some of those intermediaries operating in Hong Kong. We don't have any chance to find those intermediaries before. So I'm expecting this time we can explore more about the intermediaries in Hong Kong.
Using the Panama Papers, the Hong Kong team uncovered secret businesses operated by politicians and government officials. The public reaction was overwhelming.
All the coverage stories are on this page. We did stories about politicians.
As Tatara sought to shut down the shell company and had set it up, the Hong Kong office of Mossack Fonseca. There, she met a woman who'd been involved in establishing the Anguilla company with Tatara's name. This woman's name.
close 佢嗰間公司，因為唔知係邊個開㗎嘛。因為我哋 close 公司咧，咁都會有費用嘅。咁但係我哋到時候都會直接同翻我哋嘅 client 去聯絡嘅。管理呢間 BBI 公司所有嘅即係呢間Anguilla公司啦咁樣，咁佢係負責管理呢間公司嘅。咁所以基本上咧，我哋都係即係可能 take 佢 instruction。
She really want to know how to who stole her ID passport, and also who submit her information.
How her ID or passport was stolen, I have no idea. Maybe you can check with the administrator of this company, and because the information they may have more the information about her information, this lady's information.
NHK and HK01 went looking for the intermediary connected with Tatara's case.
喂，你好。哎，你好，那大概要多少钱呢？
我们报的是给外面客人报的是5万港币。文件的话，我们就要你的他的护照 passport， 但是你要告诉我他是哪里人，你要把这个 passport 和在不在没关系，我这个款是邮件联系的。要如果印文件的话，我根本没有空给你。
This was the intermediary that had sent the information stolen in Japan to Mossack Fonseca. This person might know who set up the company in the first place. We later managed to catch up with her. She was a Chinese woman who spoke Japanese fluently.
My name is Emi. I don't recall doing this. But there seems to be a company in Anguilla. Could you tell me who requested this?
We cannot disclose that sort of information. It would be against the rules.
So don't you verify identity?
No, not at all. It's the same with all shell companies. It is not like we have to check their ID before setting them up.
The woman would not talk about the client, even with the victim. We told her that other Japanese people had had their identities stolen as well.
Who is the real client?
They're all the same person.
So all the requests came from the same place?
A Japanese company, an investment company.
Investment company?
We have a pretty long history. But that's all I will say. I can't say anything else.
The woman's firm had been responsible. However, she refused to share any more details. And she insisted repeatedly that her firm had not.
Doesn't this mean you are an accomplice to a crime?
We don't know whether the information was stolen. We're not doing anything illegal.
Do you think you're a victim or victimizer?
A victim, I'd say. I am a victim of the Panama Papers.
Well, but from Tatara's standpoint...
I understand, but there's no point discussing it. This is how we operate.
How did Hong Kong officials respond to using stolen identities to create shell companies?
Hi. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Ken as well.
A member of the Hong Kong Parliament who is supervising financial administration spoke with NHK.
Thank you so much. It will indicate that there is some concerted effort, some syndicate operating these activities. And of course, these victims are overseas, and it will definitely tarnish our international image as a financial center. It's no good for us. You only discover these cases in the Panama Papers, okay? Yes. There may be some unknown cases which are not in the Panama Papers. If that is the case, that is very serious, and I think we do need to do something to tighten up the activities of this representative office.
Through the Panama Papers, Tatara learned by chance of her connection to international criminal activities. Now, through turmoil.
This is not something I wanted. I think that at some point, the person who did this had a malignant purpose. Whatever happens after this, I have to distance myself. In that sense, I feel my identity has been marred, invaded. This is not the way I want to live. I want my normal life back. But I really don't think it's going to be easy.
The thought that her identity might have been stolen by a criminal organization weighed heavily on Tatara. Her visit to Hong Kong did nothing to relieve her anxiety. NHK and HK01 simultaneously run the story on Tatara's case.
何者かによって盗まれた上、香港に流され、ペーパーカンパニーの設立に相次いで悪用されていたことが、NHK と香港のメディアの共同取材で初めて明らかになりました。
Multiple lives and stories intersect in the Panama Papers, and their intricate connections are just beginning to be understood. Charles Lewis is a journalist and university professor. He founded ICIJ in 1997. He thinks the group's approach to tackling the Panama Papers investigation could influence the future of journalism.
I think what's unusual about the Panama Papers and the consortium itself, of course, is the international, cross-cultural, cross-language, cross-continent and country collaborations. Whatever happens from here on, people have already come to see that this is historic and it's noteworthy, and the rest that follows will be on the shoulders of what has been accomplished. Hopefully we're going to have many more of these. I mean, many more. We need more of this. This is globalizing information and telling us of issues in the world, not just our backyard. And it will transform how the world, including its population, start to see the world. It's not about the countries anymore. It's deeper.
The ICIJ continues to uncover attempts to hide wealth and evade taxes. The group is still receiving details about concealed assets. The powerful, the wealthy, even criminals. Tax havens provide a modern veil behind which anyone can disappear, while disrupting the lives of ordinary people. Meanwhile, the international collaborative effort to reveal the secrets hidden in the Panama Papers will go on. And journalists around the world and across borders will continue searching for the truth.